Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am so pumped to dive into this one with you today. We're going to be exploring the incredible physical reality of chemical plants, specifically looking at the heavy machinery covered in module KM03. We're talking about the muscle of the operation, the pumps, the valves, the heat exchangers that literally keep our modern world running. But we aren't just stopping at the hardware. We're also going to pivot and look at how we're using artificial intelligence and the science of multimedia learning to safely train the actual human operators who run these incredibly complex systems.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Running a chemical plant is, well, it's about as high stakes as it gets. You're dealing with extreme temperatures, immense pressures, and highly volatile materials surging through thousands of miles of piping. But honestly, training a human being to run that system safely without completely frying their brain with dense engineering manuals is an equal challenge. So how do we bridge that gap between heavy, unyielding industry and human cognition?
Here is our roadmap for today. We're looking at 1. Anatomy of a chemical plant. 2. Heat, sensors, and control. 3. Managing cognitive overload. 4. Principles of multimedia learning. And finally, 5. AI-powered training solutions. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Anatomy of a Chemical Plant, the physical reality.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down the plant's circulatory system. A chemical plant isn't just one big machine, right? It's a massive, interconnected web of systems, like water treatment and steam generation, working together to turn raw materials into products. And the vital regulators of this massive piping network are the valves. Think of them kind of like the valves in your heart. You have gate valves, which are strictly your on or off switches. You absolutely don't want to use these to throttle flow, or you'll wear them out. Then you've got globe valves, which are built specifically to regulate and really fine-tune that flow. And finally, check valves. These are essentially your security bouncers. They make sure fluid only flows safely in one direction so you don't get any dangerous backflow. So if valves are regulating the flow, the pumps are the muscles supplying the actual physical force to move those liquids. And we basically look at two main categories here. Centrifugal pumps use spinning centrifugal force to literally fling fluid outward. They are fantastic for moving massive volumes of watery, low-viscosity stuff. But contrast that with positive displacement pumps. These use literal pistons or gears to actively shove fluid forward. And that is exactly what you need when you're dealing with thick, sludgy, high-viscosity materials like heavy fuel oils that just really don't want to move. Of course, before and after we pump these fluids, they need a place to sit safely. And here, the chemistry dictates the hardware. We use standard atmospheric tanks for calm, low-volatile liquids. But for highly volatile liquids, the ones that want to turn into vapor and expand rapidly, we have to use pressure tanks. You'll often see these shaped like massive spheres or bullets, simply because those rounded shapes distribute really high internal pressures evenly. The piping is a direct match too. We rely on tough alloy steel for extreme heat and pressure, but we'll actually swap to specialized plastic piping to safely transport highly corrosive acids. Moving right along to Section 2, Heat, Sensors, and Control, the plant's nervous system. To manage the extreme physical conditions inside the machinery, heating and cooling relies heavily on heat exchangers. These are amazing because they transfer thermal energy super efficiently without ever letting the hot and cold fluids actually mix together. The shell and tube design is everywhere. You have one fluid flowing inside a bundle of metal tubes and another fluid rushing around the outside of those tubes within a larger shell. Alternatively, a plate heat exchanger uses a tightly packed stack of thin, corrugated metal plates. It alternates the hot and cold fluids between them to maximize the surface area for really rapid heat transfer. Let's move to the next step and see how this all builds into the true brain of the operation, the automated control loop. To maintain something like temperature or pressure, we follow 4 distinct steps. First, a sensing device actually feels or measures the current state. Second, a transmitter translates that measurement into a standardized signal. Third, the controller in the control room receives that signal and compares it to our desired target, our set point. And fourth, if it's off target, the controller signals a final control element. It might say, hey, open that valve or speed up that pump motor to instantly fix the process.
Which brings us to Section 3, Managing Cognitive Overload, the training challenge.
Picture this. You are a brand new operator stepping into a control room for the first time. You are suddenly expected to memorize all these interconnected pumps, valves, heat exchangers, and control loops without making a catastrophic mistake. It's totally overwhelming, right?
Well, this introduces a critical concept called cognitive overload. Our working memory is strictly limited. Dropping a dense 500-page engineering manual on a new operator's desk and wishing them luck is a recipe for absolute failure. When we throw information at people that doesn't directly contribute to the learning objective, we overload their mental processing capacity, and learning just completely stops.
I want you to burn this number into your brain: 6. According to instructional design research from places like the Columbia Center for Teaching and Learning, 6 minutes is the critical mark where learner engagement with instructional videos just falls off a cliff. Think about it. If you try to teach someone a complex chemical process in a single, unstructured 45-minute video, you've completely lost them. We need short, laser-focused instruction.
Let's look at how we solve that in Section 4, Principles of Multimedia Learning, Optimizing the Mind. So how do we take massive technical complexity and actually optimize it for the human mind? Enter Richard Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning. Mayer essentially proved that humans learn vastly more deeply from a carefully synced combination of words and pictures than from just words alone. It turns out our brains utilize separate auditory and visual channels. So the best training material is basically an active process. It helps the learner filter, organize, and seamlessly integrate these two streams of information without creating a bottleneck in their brain. So the crucial point is how we actually apply these 4 evidence-based design principles. Segmenting means breaking dense material into chunks well under that 6-minute mark. Coherence strips out any fluffy, useless graphics or text. Contiguity ensures we place words directly next to the pictures they describe, so your eyes aren't playing ping pong across the screen. And signaling uses visual cues and outlines to guide your attention. And I have to point out, we're actually using these exact techniques on you right now in this very explainer. But hey, science isn't everything. As this brilliant quote from Edutopia reminds us, the most effective blended instruction isn't pretty, it's personal. Even when you have highly structured, segmented material about industrial valves, human enthusiasm and a real conversational tone are absolutely vital for maintaining engagement. If you just sound like a robot reading a textbook, cognitive overload is going to sneak right back in through sheer boredom. Let's wrap this up in Section 5, AI-powered training solutions, the virtual classroom. And this brilliantly illustrates where we are today. We're now using modern AI tools to rapidly transform those dense plant manuals into highly structured content. Platforms exist right now where you simply input raw study content, say a massive PDF on heat exchangers. Next, you customize the learning style, picking your format and even your AI avatars. Finally, the AI automatically generates a structured video that you can edit and share. It's pretty wild. It's essentially an automated control loop, but instead of regulating fluid pressure, it's regulating education. Let's look at the heavy hitters tackling the multimedia learning challenge. Synthesia excels at that human element, offering over 240 avatars and translating complex training into over 140 languages, complete with embedded quizzes. InVideo is all about rapid text-to-video generation and collaborative multiplayer editing. And Motion specializes in generating incredibly realistic study scenarios and visual concept mapping. They can actually simulate real-world control room conversations for peer-to-peer learning.
And the speed of this tech? It's staggering. Check out this number, 65. That's the percentage by which Motion recently outperformed competitors in speed benchmarks for generating study videos. They're pumping out full, 3-minute, highly structured training videos in under 2 minutes. High quality, perfectly segmented training creation is quite literally instantaneous now.
Ultimately, what does this all mean for us? It means leveraging these AI features allows us to apply Richard Mayer's principles at a massive scale. We can embed interactivity with quizzes to keep learners engaged. We can build in spaced repetition. We can auto-generate varied visual cues for perfect signaling. We can localize dubbing so every single operator learns in their native language. And we can build out branching scenarios tailored to specific roles in the plant. It makes industrial training deeply personal, perfectly chunked, and totally accessible. Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to ponder. How will the future of AI and multimedia continue to shape industrial safety and the very way we learn? We've seen today that running a chemical plant absolutely requires mastering physical machines, but securing the future of that plant? That requires mastering the virtual tools we use to teach the humans operating them. By perfectly aligning our tech with the science of human cognition, we're building safer, smarter, and infinitely more efficient industries. Thanks so much for hanging out with me in this explainer from Module KM03. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.